there's over drinking, marriage is ending, secrets come out, and people, jail.
Yeah. This season on The Real Housewives of Toronto.
When you have money and a fabulous life, lots of people want to be your friend. Who took their panties off at my dinner party? Come after me. Flames will shoot out of my nostrils. You're being very hostile. Hostile? She said that.
I will punch her.
The Real Housewives of Toronto.
So what is the appeal of being on a reality TV show?
I think a lot of people sign up for it, first of all, to if they have something to sell, right? Like, or if they don't have something to sell, but they want to sell something. Or, you know, a lot of times people want to do it for like a reinvention of themselves, who they are, and, you know, I want to put myself out there, that sort of thing. I think a lot of people also foolishly think, oh, production will never, ever find out about this, or I can get away with this. And that is like your biggest mistake. The mics are always hot. I mean, I would be in the back of a limousine and my husband would call me and we'd be filming, and part of the contract is if you get a call and you're filming, it's fair game, because he had signed the participant agreement. His was nicer. He likes to say, in the bacon and egg breakfast, I was the pig and he was the chicken. But, you know, if he calls me, it's fair game, and I would just be, the production was like, do you want to answer that? And I'd be going, decline. No, I'm fine, thanks, I'm good. You know, it's fine. And I was like, stop calling, I don't want to talk to you on the phone. But I think a lot of people think like, you know, I can hide the skeletons, and I think that's why it was hard casting Toronto. Because, you know, we all have our skeletons. I think Torontonians are really good at keeping them in the back of our closet. We like to keep them there. So they had a hard time casting because they interviewed a lot of people, and either they didn't have the TVQ, or once they saw the participant agreement, they said, you know, I had people say you'd have to be nuts to sign that. You'd have to be crazy. So why do it? Probably,
not just you, like that.
I think they would do it for most people that do it for the publicity. Also, I'll tell you this, my friend Kathy Hilton has said this. It's fun to be on TV. Sorry, but it's fun. When you're doing it, I mean, it started to get really not fun after I broke my ribs. And yes, I did break my ribs. But, you know, it's fun when you're doing it. Like, when you start out, it's fun. You have people filming you, and you put the mic back on, and, you know, people are watching you downtown, and they're like, oh, what are they doing inside? It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
You know, fiction, truth is stranger than fiction. There's some stuff in the book. I had really good intel that I was going down, and my son found the intel. I knew for a fact that like the bus was coming and I was going to be under the bus, no doubts about it. And so I kind of went, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to watch the show. So I actually didn't watch it when it aired for like, I don't know, the first. My sister watched it and would call and go, oh, it's bad. Thank you. But I didn't watch it like for the first, I don't know, I want to say like it took me about 6 months to watch it. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because I didn't want to see it, because I said like, okay, but that's not me. That's a version of me. And, yeah.
So how do you go from being on a reality TV show and filming, and then with cameras, and you are acting, because everyone would kind of act if there was a camera.
Exactly.
How do you get your mindset back into reality?
Actually, that wasn't so hard. That was pretty easy, because like even as soon as we would stop doing like a scene in my, you know, like so what I think a lot of people don't understand is it's a huge upheaval, and I talk about this in the book a little. So for example, I was watching the first episode and I saw my husband and I having a discussion in our bedroom, and I was like, my gosh, my bedroom hasn't looked that clean since the show. You can't have any of, you know, the crap that you have around your house. You can't have that out. And if anything, if you have a painting or something that the artist hasn't cleared permission with production, that painting has to come down. So everything, you know, this bookstore would be a nightmare. They would never film in a bookstore like this, or they'd have to blur everything, because if people can see anything, you know, even the trademark of those little green guys up there, they'd be like, nope, we can't show them unless we have clearance and whatnot. So you clear everything out. Your bedspread, like, you know, I would steam my bedspread so it had not a wrinkle in it, everything out of my bathroom. So you're really not living in a real world. So as soon as we would stop filming, I'd be like, oh, can I put my stuff back now, and stuff like that. So the transition of getting back to real life was really easy, because, I mean, you know, my husband was such a trooper. We'd do like a scene where he was picking out what I was gonna wear, and he was like, yeah, because I do this all the time. He does do it a lot. He does help me a lot, just not that invested and, what are you and your girlfriends going to be talking about?
So, what does it feel like to be hated in public as opposed to maybe, just like, suddenly hating, just, not on television.
No, I get it. Yeah, people are very open. Like, I would be having lunch with my kids in Yorkville on a patio, and for example, two ladies sat beside us, and one of them said, excuse me, and I was like, yes, and she said, I saw you on the Real Housewives, and I said, oh, hi, thanks for saying hi, I'm Karen, I'd introduce myself. She goes, I didn't like you. And I'm sort of like, okay, well, thanks. Like, I don't even know how to come back from that. I was in Metro in the dairy section, I'll never forget this, and a woman came down and said, you disgust me. But people do that. Like, it was like, I felt like I was a little bit like, Erica Kane used to get letters in the mail. I felt like I was like living Erica Kane going, holy cow, like people, they really get passionate about these shows, and I've talked about the trolls on Instagram and stuff like that. That's one thing, but when people say it, like people would come up and say it to me in the street, and they still do. Actually, downtown today, a lady said, I'm friends with a lot of the other ladies on the show, and I was like, okay, and I gave her a bookmark. I said, buy my book. I should have actually. But yeah, people are very, they get passionate about these shows, and they feel very passionate.
So why do you think it was you who got the bad edit?
Why was it me? I think probably because, so I've said this before, like we do a psychological assessment and a physical before the show, and I had the opportunity to sit in on a casting session with Jonathan Murray, who did The Simple Life and The Real World, and he was talking about how do you cast reality television, specifically how do you cast a villain. So I had my little off-brand little skin and I was taking notes, and he said, number one, you need someone who has a really high emotional intelligence. You need someone that comes from a distinct point of view. You need a very strong personality, and you need someone that has a very loose filter. All of those things, tick, 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 tick. So after the show wrapped, I didn't know about the emotional intelligence, but I contacted the psychiatrist who had done the psychological assessment. He actually lived down the street from me, because one of the things I said in the psychological assessment is, one of my biggest fears is when I walk my dog, having another dog around, because I never know how the two dogs are going to react. I'm fine with my dog, who's big, but when I meet another big dog, I'm always so nervous, like what's going to happen? And he was like, oh, where do you walk your dog? And we found out that we were actually neighbors, and I was like, oh, cool. He gets a cameo in the book under a different name. Anyway, so I contacted him and I said, is there any way I could see my psychological assessment? And he said, absolutely. So he sent it to me, and the very first line said, Kara Alloway has a very high emotional intelligence. And I went, oh, okay. So production saw that and went, okay, well, she's very outspoken, she's very this, she has a distinct point of view. So I think I just literally checked all the boxes for that. Fun fact, one of the first, so my two phobias that I shared with them in the psychological assessment, the dogs and then driving on the highway. One of the first scenes I had to do was walking my dog in the park with another cast member with the big dog. Gee, how surprising. And then the next thing was, now we're gonna film you driving in your car to Muskoka, talking on the phone. And I was like, and of course people say, well, don't you have the opportunity to say no? 100% you can say, I won't film that, but you have to remember the people who control your edit are the people who are doing this. So there is, you don't want to really annoy these people too much, because they're saying, now we're going to do this, now we're going to do this. So yeah, that was a lot.